The white box was the last gift on my birthday table. Celeste reached for it with both hands and smiled at the 200 people waiting for her to open it. Behind her, the glass walls of the Harbor Vale Hotel reflected chandeliers, candlelight, and the black Atlantic breaking against the rocks below. The room looked exactly the way she had imagined it. That was important. Because for the last 7 months, Celeste had imagined everything except the possibility that I might mean no. "You saved yours for last," she said. Her voice carried easily through the glass house. The string quartet had stopped playing. Our staff stood along the back wall in navy uniforms. Investors, artists, local officials, and people who had known my family for 30 years watched from tables dressed in white linen and winter roses. Beside Celeste stood Ivy Rowan in a silver dress, one hand resting lightly on the back of Celeste's chair. Not touching her, not quite. Ivy understood cameras. "I did," I said. Celeste untied the dark green ribbon. She lifted the lid and moved aside a layer of tissue paper. For 1 second, the smile stayed exactly where it was. Then she saw the documents. She read the first page. Her eyes stopped at the heading. She turned to the second page, then the third. The room did not move, but something inside it changed. People leaned forward without realizing they had done it. Celeste looked up at me. "Mara," she said softly, "what is this?" "The answer you kept asking me to change." Her fingers tightened around the pages. The first document was a petition for divorce. The second revoked her authority to book, spend for, represent, or enter restricted areas of the Harbor Vale Hotel. The third was an invoice for every dollar she and Ivy had charged to the hotel while secretly planning their wedding inside it. At the bottom, in a line my attorney had made beautifully simple, was the total: $318,406. Celeste looked at the invoice, then at Ivy, then back at me. "You cannot do this here," she whispered. I glanced around the glass house. At the flowers ordered for a ceremony I had refused. At the stage built for vows I had never approved. At the monogram projected onto the far wall, C and I woven together in gold, covered for the moment by the birthday banner Celeste planned to remove after dessert. "Here is where you chose to do it," I said. I turned toward the guests. Some looked shocked. Some looked embarrassed. 3 members of the hotel board looked furious, but not with me. Near the service doors, our general manager, Ruth, gave the smallest nod. Celeste lowered her voice. "We need to speak privately." We did, 7 times. The silence that followed was not empty. It was crowded with every no she had edited into maybe, every boundary she had translated into fear, and every plan she had made using my name after I had withdrawn it. I took my mother's brass hotel key from my pocket and placed it on the table between us. Not to give it away, to remind Celeste who it had belonged to before either of us arrived. Then I said the sentence I had practiced until it no longer shook inside me. "Happy birthday to me." To understand why my wife was holding divorce papers at my birthday gala while her future bride stood beside her, you have to understand the hotel. Harbor Vale was not just property. It was the last thing my mother trusted me to protect. Harbor Vale sat on a cliff outside Greyhaven, Maine. My grandparents bought its 28 rooms when the place still smelled like coal smoke and wet wool. My mother, Evelyn, turned it into the kind of hotel where honeymooners returned with children, then returned again for their children's weddings. I grew up behind the desk. By 19, I could calm an angry guest, reset a boiler, and arrange hydrangeas before breakfast. I also knew what the hotel cost my mother: missed dinners, unpaid repairs, and years spent smiling while the ocean ate the seawall. When she died, I was a structural engineer in Boston with reliable hours and no plan to inherit her exhaustion. Then her lawyer gave me a letter. "Mara," it began, "the building is not the legacy. Your ability to choose what happens to it is." She left Harbor Vale to me through a trust created before my marriage. I could sell it or restore it. Her only request was that I decide freely. Celeste held my hand while I read. We had been married 11 months. "Whatever you choose," she said, "I am with you." I believed her. I chose restoration. Celeste, a gifted brand strategist, attracted investors and attention. I handled structure, permits, and money. We slept in the only room with heat, ate takeout on paint buckets, and argued happily about wallpaper. On opening night, she found me crying in the laundry because my mother was not there to see the full lobby. Celeste held me until I could breathe. That is what makes betrayal difficult to explain. The person who wounds you is often also the person who once knew exactly how to hold you. Within months, Harbor Vale had a 6-month wedding waitlist. Ivy Rowan arrived the following February. Celeste introduced Ivy as a New York creative director who could make the hotel iconic. Ivy wore cream in rooms where everyone else wore black, remembered every name, and made compliments feel like private discoveries. In the glass house, with snow moving over the ocean, Ivy said, "This room does not need decoration. It needs permission to be itself." Celeste looked at her as if she had heard a private language. I hired Ivy. I approved her fee and praised her early work. What concerned me were the small exclusions. A joke that stopped when I entered, 2 wine glasses in Celeste's office, and Ivy knowing preferences Celeste had never shared in front of me. Then Celeste's phone lit up on the kitchen island. "North Star, I found the vows. You were right." They sound like us. North Star had been Celeste's name for me during our first year together. When she returned, I asked why Ivy had my old nickname. "It is a phrase, Mara. People use phrases. And the vows? A campaign concept. For what?" Her surprise became fatigue, as if my noticing had created work for her. "We develop ideas," she said. "Not every fragment is a conspiracy." That was the first time she made my question sound like a character flaw. 3 days later, while freezing rain struck the road home from Portland, Celeste asked whether one person could have more than one great love at the same time. "Is this about Ivy?" Her silence answered first. "I have feelings," she said. "I have not acted on them in the way you imagine. What way have you acted on them? Emotionally, creatively? Have you kissed her? No, told her you love her. Not in those words. Discussed vows." She accused me of reducing something complex to an interrogation. "I am asking simple questions because you are using complex language to avoid simple answers." "Finally," she said, "what if loving Ivy does not reduce what I feel for you? It changes what you are doing with me." "Only if you decide it has to." That sentence separated my consent from her choices. If I was hurt, it would be because I interpreted her actions badly. She could keep everything, and I would be responsible for the cost. I pulled into a rest area and faced her. "I do not consent to another relationship inside our marriage. I do not consent to a symbolic wedding or a public story in which I must bless you and Ivy. You are free to choose that life, but you cannot choose it and keep this marriage. You have rehearsed that. No, I have clarified it." We drove the rest of the way in silence. For 2 weeks, Celeste became attentive enough to make me doubt myself. Then she brought me coffee and proposed a ceremonial marriage with Ivy while I remained her legal wife. "No," she kept explaining. "No," I repeated. "The answer does not depend on the decorations." Her face hardened. "Stop treating fear like principle. Stop treating my no like a draft." That should have ended the conversation. Instead, Celeste renamed the wedding Recognition, sent me essays about expansive love, and described Ivy as family in front of the staff. Then I found Ivy behind reception wearing a master keycard. "Celeste gave it to me," she said. I held out my hand. "Consultants do not carry master keys." Celeste accused me of humiliating Ivy. "She had my authorization. You cannot issue master keys. I helped build this place. You helped rebuild it." Guest security is not a metaphor. The next morning, the audit showed Ivy's card had been active for 19 days. I deactivated it, printed the log, and saved it in a folder named Winter Maintenance. That was the first receipt. The second came from a florist. Her name was Tessa Bell. She had supplied arrangements for Harbor Vale since before I could reach the front counter. She called me on a Wednesday afternoon sounding confused. "I want to confirm the peony substitution," she said. I know the Ivory Garden roses matter to Celeste, but late September peonies will be expensive. For which event? There was a pause. The Vale Rowan ceremony. I stood in my office looking at the sea through rain-streaked windows. Send me the proposal, I said. Mara, I thought you were copied. Send me everything you received. 10 minutes later, an email arrived. The proposal was for a private commitment ceremony in the Glass House on September 28th. My birthday, 180 guests. Winter roses, candle arches, custom linens, live strings, champagne tower, midnight supper. The creative notes described two women choosing truth in a place built by courage. The billing contact was Harbor Vale Events. The approver was listed as Mara Vale. My signature appeared at the bottom. It was not my signature. Some betrayals arrive as emotion. This one arrived as typography. I enlarged the page. Whoever had copied my signature had taken it from an old vendor contract. The M carried a small hook I had stopped making after a hand injury 2 years earlier. Tessa called again before I could call her. I am sorry, she said. Celeste told me the ceremony was your idea. She said the birthday gala was the cover until the announcement. Did she say I approved the payment? Yes. Do not cancel anything yet. Tessa went silent. Mara, I need you to preserve the emails, the proposal, and every attachment exactly as they are. Do not contact Celeste. Do not contact Ivy. Can you do that? Yes. And Tessa? Yes. Thank you for calling me. After we hung up, I locked my office door. I read the proposal again from beginning to end. Then I downloaded it, printed it, and saved copies in 3 places. I did not cry. For months, I had been living inside a fog of argument, defending obvious things until they sounded debatable. The forged signature burned the fog away. This was no longer a disagreement about love. Celeste was using my name, my property, my staff, and my mother's hotel to stage a ceremony I had expressly refused. She did not misunderstand me. She had decided my understanding was unnecessary. That night, Celeste brought home my favorite caramels and touched my face with real tenderness. So was the forged signature. That contradiction did not excuse her. It explained how she excused herself. She believed sincere love made her choices honorable, even when those choices erased mine. 2 days later, I found the program. Inside were 4 versions of a cream booklet tied with green thread. The cover read, CELESTE and Ivy a harbor vow September 28. The ceremony included a procession through the lobby, vows in the Glass House, a portrait session on the Widow's Walk, and dinner in the East Ballroom. The Widow's Walk had been closed for 37 years. On the final page was a note to guests. We are grateful to Mara, whose courage, generosity, and belief in love made this homecoming possible. I read it twice. They had written my blessing into the program, not because they had forgotten my refusal. Because they planned to place me inside a public story where refusing at the last moment would make me look cruel. My birthday gala would gather the hotel's investors, staff, friends, and press. Celeste would announce the ceremony. People would applaud. I would be expected to smile. Then, once the applause existed, my no would become an embarrassing technicality. It was elegant. It was also the end of my marriage. Ruth stood beside my desk, her face pale with anger. What do you want me to do? She asked. Nothing visible. They used your name. I know. They are planning to put guests on the Widow's Walk. I know. Mara, the railing has not been certified. It was one of the reasons I trusted her. And the ceremony? I placed the program back in the box. Let them keep planning. Ruth stared at me. Are you sure? No, I said, but I am finished warning people who use my warnings to improve their disguise. The following week, I met Helena Ward, a divorce attorney who read the trust documents before she asked about my feelings. The hotel is separate property, she said. Celeste owns shares in the operating company, not the building. She cannot book the venue without your authority. I showed her the forged contract. Then the wedding is not your largest problem. I want the hotel safe, the staff paid, and my name removed from anything I did not approve. We mapped the exit. preserve evidence, audit 7 months of spending, suspend Celeste's authority through the board, honor legitimate vendor labor, seek reimbursement, and prepare the divorce. When do you want her served? Helena asked. September 28th, your birthday. It is the night she plans to spend my consent in public. I want the truth available in the same room. Helena held my gaze. Protect yourself. Do not turn protection into punishment because an audience is watching. I carried that warning home. For 6 weeks, I became calm, and Celeste mistook it for surrender. Security logs showed Ivy entering after hours. They held tastings, photographed table settings, and ordered a rosemary wedding cake under the name of my birthday gala. My birthday became a password. Anything hidden could pass if it carried my name. The accountant found wedding expenses coded as brand development and staff training. $48,000 for lighting, $21,000 for flowers, $36,000 added to Ivy's consulting fee, and $74,000 sent to a new production company registered at Ivy's apartment. This is not a wedding budget, he said. It is extraction. I still wanted to call Celeste careless or manipulated, then I remembered the copied signature. Document all of it. At home, Celeste asked what I wanted for my birthday. A quiet dinner. She laughed. Trust me. This night will change everything. I believe you, I said. 3 weeks before the gala, I overheard the conversation that removed the last of my doubt. I had returned to the hotel after midnight because a storm alarm showed water in the basement. The sensor was faulty. By 12:30, I had reset it and started upstairs through the dark lobby. Voices came from the glass house. Celeste and Ivy stood near the windows. The chandeliers were off, but work lights illuminated a sample arch covered in winter roses. She is too quiet, Ivy said. That is good, Celeste answered. Mara gets quiet before she accepts something, or before she leaves. Celeste laughed softly. She will not leave the hotel. I mean you. A long pause. Then Celeste said, the hotel is me, it is us. Mara may own the paper, but I built the brand. She knows what happens if I walk away. Ivy stepped closer. And if she refuses at the party? She will not in front of the board, not in front of the press. Everyone will see how beautiful it is. Once people applaud, she will not humiliate us. You are sure? I know my wife. The confidence in her voice was almost tender. That was the part I remember most. Celeste was not afraid of hurting me. She was certain she had correctly calculated the amount of pain I would absorb to protect her from embarrassment. I stepped backward into the shadow of the lobby. I could have walked into the glass house. I could have switched on every light and demanded explanations. A year earlier, I might have done it. I still believed then that clarity could rescue any relationship if you worked hard enough to produce it. But clarity was not missing. Consent was. I left through the kitchen and drove to the small cottage at the north edge of the property. It had belonged to my mother's groundskeeper and had been empty since spring. I sat on the bare floor until dawn with my back against the wall and listened to the ocean. At 6, I called Helena. Proceed with everything, I said. Are you certain? I looked through the cottage window at Harbor Vale, its windows turning gold one by one as the morning staff arrived. Completely. 48 hours later, Helena showed the board the forged authorization, access logs, payments, vendor emails, and security footage. They voted unanimously to suspend Celeste's authority at 6 on the night of the gala, just before her planned announcement. We stopped pending transfers and promised to pay vendors for legitimate work already performed. Their labor was not responsible for Celeste's deception. The cost would be added to our claim. Tessa asked whether she should remove the winter roses. No, they are flowers. Celeste does not get custody of flowers. Meanwhile, I furnished the small cottage, moved clothes a few pieces at a time, separated my accounts, froze an undisclosed home equity application, and removed passports and family letters from the owner's apartment. Celeste noticed none of it. 1 week before my birthday, she found me in the hotel library. I want one gift, she said, an open heart. I have one. For a moment, she looked like the woman from room 12. I do not want to lose you. The words found every weak place I still had. Then stop. Tell me the truth now, and we will decide what remains. I gave her that final door because I needed to know I had not mistaken preparation for fate. She smiled and reached for my hand. You are going to understand soon. I moved before she touched me. Yes, I said. I am. My birthday arrived bright and cold. Florists carried winter roses through the lobby while technicians tested a gold monogram in the glass house. Celeste kissed me beside the service elevator. Do not go in before 7. There are surprises. I know. In the map room, we reviewed the final sequence. At 6, Celeste's credentials would deactivate. Minutes later, her purchasing and banking permissions would end. Helena and a process server would wait in the library. Helena reminded me I could serve her privately. Then Ruth confirmed Celeste had invited society reporters for a landmark personal story. If I stop her first, she will say I destroyed a harmless surprise because I was jealous, I said. She may say that anyway. Then I will have documents. At 4, I dressed in the cottage. I kept my wedding ring on as evidence of what I had honored until the end. My mother's brass key went into my pocket. The white box held the divorce petition, board resolution, access revocation, and itemized invoice. Celeste had tried to fit all her choices inside one marriage. I put all her consequences inside one box. At 6, the system removed her authority. Her phone began ringing, but she silenced it as guests arrived. At 6:30, the glass house opened. Winter roses framed the room. A birthday banner covered the wedding monogram. A 7-tier rosemary cake waited without candles. Martin raised his glass. You are very calm. I have had practice. Are you all right? Not yet, but I will be. Celeste performed happiness beautifully through dinner. Ivy sat on her other side. They did not touch. They did not need to. The entire night had been constructed as contact. After dessert, Celeste stood. She tapped her glass. The quartet stopped. Conversations softened, then disappeared. Most of you believe we are here for Mara's birthday, she began. A warm ripple of laughter moved through the room. And we are. Mara is the reason Harbor Vale exists in this form. She is the reason so many of us found a home in this impossible, stubborn building on the edge of the sea. She turned to me. For one dangerous second, I saw love in her face. Real love. That was when I understood love was never the defense she thought it was. Love could be real and still be selfish. Love could be sincere and still refuse consent. Feeling something deeply did not make every action taken in its name honorable. Celeste continued. Mara taught me that courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to build something larger than fear. Behind her, Ivy moved toward the projection controls. Tonight, I want to honor that lesson by telling the truth about a love that has changed me. The birthday banner vanished. Gold light appeared on the far glass wall. C and I woven together above the date of their ceremony. Several guests gasped. A few began to clap because they did not yet understand. Celeste extended her hand. Ivy walked to her and took it. Ivy and I have chosen to make vows here at Harbor Vale, Celeste said. Not to replace my marriage to Mara, but to expand the family and the future this place represents. The applause weakened. People looked at me. Celeste did too. This was the moment she had planned. The room, the press, the board, the flowers. She had turned my refusal into a stage direction. All I had to do was smile, and history would remember consent where coercion had stood. I rose. Celeste's shoulders loosened. She believed I was coming to join them. I walked to the gift table and picked up the white box. Before Celeste says more, I said, I have one final birthday gift to open. The room was so quiet I could hear the ocean striking the seawall below. I carried the box to her. She smiled for the cameras. Then she opened it. The smile faded page by page. Divorce petition, board resolution, revoked authority, invoice, $318,406. When she asked what it was, I gave her the answer she had spent 7 months trying not to hear. When she said I could not do this here, I reminded her that here was where she had chosen to use my name. And when she demanded privacy, I told her we had already spoken privately 7 times. I placed my mother's brass key on the table. "Happy birthday to me," I said. No one applauded. I was grateful for that. This was not a victory. It was an amputation. Necessary, life-saving, and nothing a healthy person would celebrate while it was happening. Celeste looked around the room. She saw the board members avoiding her eyes. She saw Ruth beside security. She saw Helena entering through the library doors with the process server. Then she understood the night had been moving without her. "You planned this," she said. "Yes. For how long?" "Since the florist sent me the contract with my forged signature." A camera shutter clicked. I looked toward the sound. One of the reporters lowered her camera. "No photographs of the documents," I said. "This is a legal matter." She nodded. Celeste went pale. "Forged is a dramatic word. It is an accurate one." "I signed on your behalf. I have done that before. For approved operating purchases below $5,000, not for a private ceremony, not for $300,000, not after I explicitly refused." Ivy released Celeste's hand. It was a small movement, but Celeste felt it. She turned. "Do not," she said. Ivy looked at the invoice. "What does revoked venue access mean?" "It means neither of you may use the glass house for a personal ceremony," I said. "It means your consulting agreement is terminated for undisclosed conflicts, improper access, and payments to your production company. It means security will escort you while you collect personal property from authorized areas." Ivy's composure cracked. "Celeste told me the board approved this." "The board learned about it 9 days ago." Every face at the nearest tables turned toward Celeste. "You knew what this was," Celeste said to Ivy. "I knew what you told me it was. You saw Mara say no. You said she always says no before she comes around." There it was, not remorse, allocation. The moment consequences arrived, each woman began deciding how much of the plan belonged to the other. I did not interrupt. Celeste turned back to me. Tears stood in her eyes. "Did you ever intend to give us a chance? I gave you a choice. That is not the same thing. It is when the choice is between respecting a marriage and leaving it. You are destroying everything we built." The sentence moved through me like cold water. I thought about room 12, the paint buckets, my mother's letter, Celeste holding me in the laundry room, all the true things we had built before she started using them as collateral. "No," I said. "I am separating what we built from what you tried to take." Helena reached us. "Celeste Vale." Celeste did not look at her. The process server offered the envelope. For a moment, I thought Celeste might throw the box, shout, or turn the room into the humiliation she had accused me of creating. Instead, she became very still. She accepted the papers. "Where am I supposed to go?" she asked me. "The apartment is available for 14 days under the temporary agreement. After tonight, access will be escorted. Your attorney can contact Helena. You moved out. It was not a question. 3 weeks ago." Her eyes widened. "Where?" "Somewhere you never thought to look." She glanced toward Ivy. Ivy was already reading the termination notice. The room did not explode. Real endings are often quieter than the fantasies people build around them. Guests whispered. A few left. Ruth asked the quartet to resume in the ballroom, giving anyone who wanted distance a graceful reason to move. Staff cleared the monogram from the wall. Tessa's crew removed the hidden aisle markers but left the roses. Celeste walked out of the glass house holding the white box. Ivy did not follow her immediately. She stayed behind long enough to ask one question. "Does Celeste own any part of the hotel itself?" Not, "Is she all right?" Not, "Can I see her?" Not even, "What happens now?" She asked about ownership. "No," I said. "She owns shares in the operating company. The property belongs to the trust." Ivy looked toward the door Celeste had used. Something in her face recalculated. Then she left. Martin approached me after the room had thinned. "Do you want us to close the gala?" he asked. I looked at the staff who had spent weeks preparing it, at the musicians waiting for instruction, at the food already cooked, and at the winter roses glowing beneath the chandeliers. "No," I said. "It is still my birthday." The party continued. Not normally. Nothing about it was normal. But people ate. The quartet played. Ruth found 40 candles and pushed them into the rosemary cake after removing the silver topper. The pastry chef lit them with a kitchen torch because nobody could find matches. When the guests sang, my voice broke. That was when I cried. Not during the service. Not when Celeste accused me of destroying us. I cried with 40 small flames in front of me while people who knew enough not to call the moment brave stood nearby and let me be devastated. I made one wish. I wished that the next thing I built would not require me to disappear inside it. Then I blew out the candles. The consequences began the next morning. Celeste called 23 times before noon. I did not answer. Helena sent her attorney the documents and directed all contact through counsel. Ivy left the owner's apartment before sunrise. Security footage showed her carrying 2 suitcases, 3 garment bags, and the cream program box. By afternoon, her production company's website had disappeared. By evening, she had sent a formal letter claiming Celeste had misrepresented her authority and the status of our marriage. Celeste responded with emails proving Ivy had reviewed the forged authorization. They turned on each other with remarkable efficiency. I felt no pleasure watching it. I felt confirmation. The ceremony had been described as a love too honest for conventional limits. The moment the hotel, money, and audience disappeared, that honesty became legal positioning. 3 days later, Celeste came to the cottage. She should not have known where I was, but she knew the property better than I wanted to admit. I saw her through the window standing beneath the porch light in the rain, without an umbrella, wearing the same black coat she had worn the night my mother died. I opened the door but did not invite her in. She looked past me at the green chair, the boxes, and the narrow kitchen. "You have been living here." "Yes, while I was planning your birthday, while you were planning your wedding." She flinched. For the first time since the gala, she looked less angry than lost. "Ivy is gone," she said. I waited. "She says I lied to her. Did you?" Celeste crossed her arms against the rain. "I told her you would come around." "That was a lie." I believed it. Believing your own lie does not make it true. Her eyes filled. "I lost her. I lost the hotel. I lost you." The order hurt more than I expected. She heard it after she said it. Her face changed. "That is not what I meant." "It is exactly what you meant. You still think this is a list of things taken from you." "What do you want me to say?" "Nothing. I wanted you to hear me when there was still something to decide." She looked toward the hotel lights beyond the trees. "Do you hate me?" I considered the question honestly. "No. Then why does this feel so final?" "Because hate is not the opposite of staying. Clarity is enough." Rain moved through the porch light in silver lines. Celeste began to cry then, quietly. No performance, no audience, no argument. I wanted to step forward. My body remembered comforting her before my mind could stop it. I held the doorframe instead. "I did love you," she said. "I know. I still do. I know that too." Does that mean nothing? It means love was present. It does not mean respect was. She closed her eyes. For a while, we listened to the rain. Then I told her to call her attorney and went inside. I did not watch her leave. The forensic review took 4 months. The divorce took 11. Celeste repaid part of the unauthorized spending by surrendering her shares in the operating company. Insurance covered some of the forged contract losses. Ivy settled the hotel's claims without admitting wrongdoing and agreed not to use Harbor Vale's images, guest lists, or brand materials. The remaining cost became an expensive lesson the hotel could survive. Celeste moved to New York. I heard she returned to consulting under her maiden name. I heard she and Ivy never reconciled. I heard many things. Most of them stopped mattering before people stopped telling me. What mattered was the hotel. For the first 3 months, I could not enter the glass house without seeing the gold monogram on the wall. Even after the projection was gone, I saw it. C&IA future designed around my expected surrender. I considered closing the room. Ruth refused to let me. "Rooms do not betray people," she said. "People make choices in rooms. Give this one better choices." So we did. We canceled 2 influencer events and offered the dates to local couples whose original venues had closed after a flood. We reopened the winter residency for artists who could not afford coastal housing. We held a free anniversary dinner for the hotel's longest-serving employees. Tessa filled the glass house with blue hydrangeas from my mother's garden for the first wedding after the divorce. I stood at the back during that ceremony. When the couple reached the vows, the bride paused and said, "I choose you without assuming you owe me the same choice tomorrow." I promise to keep earning the life we are making. The words were not grand. That was why I believed them. Afterward, Tessa found me on the terrace. "You survived the roses," she said. "The roses were innocent. You keep saying that, because everyone keeps blaming them." She smiled and handed me a cup of coffee. We had become friends during the months of contracts, deposit disputes, and emergency flower changes. Tessa never asked me to turn the friendship into a symbol of recovery. She did not tell me I deserved love or suggest that the best response to betrayal was finding someone better. She talked about soil, invoices, her teenage son, and the impossible cost of refrigerated vans. She let silence be silence. One evening in late autumn, we sat on the seawall after a delivery. She asked if I wanted dinner. I knew what she was asking. More importantly, I knew I could say no without losing the friendship. "Yes," I said. It was only dinner. Then it was another dinner. Months later, it became something we named carefully, with questions that were actual questions and answers that did not require correction. I will not tell you it healed me. People are not medicine for wounds they did not create. I healed through lawyers, sleep, anger, honest friends, long walks, therapy, and mornings. When I opened the hotel before dawn and remembered, I still knew how to make a place ready for strangers. Tessa did not rescue me. She met me after I stopped asking to be rescued. On my 41st birthday, we held no gala. Ruth, Martin, Tessa, a dozen staff members, and I ate chowder in the hotel kitchen after the last guests checked in. The pastry chef made a lopsided chocolate cake with one candle. Someone found the old photograph of my mother standing behind the front desk in 1987, her hair enormous, her expression exhausted and proud. I placed the picture beside the brass key. The hotel's name had changed that spring, not dramatically. We restored the word my grandfather had removed during a rebrand in the 90s. Evelyn Harbor Vale. My mother's name returned to the stationery, the front sign, and the small brass plate beside the entrance. Not because buildings are people, not because inheritance must become identity, but because the hotel existed through generations of choices, and I wanted the next chapter to remember the woman who had given me the most important one, the ability to decide freely. Before I cut the cake, Ruth handed me a white box tied with dark green ribbon. Everyone went silent. "That is not funny," I said. "Open it," she answered. Inside was a framed copy of the final hotel balance sheet. For the first time in 12 years, Harbor Vale had ended the season without renovation debt. Beneath it was a card signed by every employee. "You kept the doors open without letting them close around you." I read the sentence twice. Then I laughed so hard I cried, and because the people around me understood the difference, nobody rushed to stop either one. Later, after the kitchen emptied, I carried the brass key to the front desk. The lobby was quiet. Firelight moved across the old wood floor. Beyond the windows, the ocean was invisible, but I could hear it striking the cliff in the dark. Tessa came to stand beside me. "What are you thinking?" she asked. Once I would have given the useful answer, the one that protected the room from the weight of what I actually felt. Instead, I told her, "I am thinking that I spent years believing strength meant carrying whatever someone I loved decided to place on me." She waited, and now I looked at the key in my hand. "Now I think strength is knowing what is mine to carry and what belongs on someone else's bill." Tessa smiled. She did not turn the sentence into a promise. She did not make it about us. She simply stood beside me while I placed the key in my mother's blue bowl. That is what Celeste never understood. My silence was not permission. My patience was not consent. My love was not a blank signature she could copy onto whatever future she wanted. She believed the hotel made me incapable of leaving. She believed the audience would make me incapable of refusing. She believed history, money, loyalty, and embarrassment would hold me in place long enough for her desire to become reality. She was wrong about all of it. The hotel was not the cage. It was the door my mother left me. And on my birthday, when my wife tried to use my home as the altar for a marriage I had rejected, I finally walked through it. I did not give Celeste divorce papers because she loved another woman. I gave them to her because she decided loving me meant she no longer needed my permission. There is a difference. It is the difference between love and possession, between a question and a campaign, between compromise and surrender. And once I could name that difference, leaving was not revenge. It was the first honest vow I had made to myself in years. Mara never shouted. She never competed with Ivy, and she never begged Celeste to choose her. She preserved the receipts, protected the people who depended on her, and answered coercion with clarity. If Mara's story stayed with you, comment one word that describes the moment she placed that white box on the table.